Hey, everybody. Welcome to our weekly Ecosystem Office Hours call. I am your host, Jinx, and joined, as always, by the best and brightest of the Pocket ecosystem. Gabby is doing networking and event things today, so I'm going to go ahead and kick things off for Grove on our side, or sorry, for the Foundation on our side. Do want to let everybody know that with our PGAT program, we have scheduled our demo day for April 4th. We are looking to get a broad audience and invite a number of our partners and VC friends and all the rest of that to come and see the kinds of things that our PGA teams are building. That will be held in the stage channel of this Discord. So if you're in here, you can certainly come along and watch and see and meet the teams and see what they're building. So we are super excited about that. May have some additional Foundation stuff, but I'm waiting on last minute here. So I'm going to hand it over to Art for now for protocol and Grove updates.
Awesome. All right. Hey all. So bunch of different updates. So one, I will kick off by saying that our goal is to begin producing Shannon blocks at the end of next week, meaning we'll launch mainnet, but it'll be just empty blocks because none of the token transfer, the migration, all that stuff will happen later. But we're at least going to kick off the production of blocks on Shannon, which means Shannon will go live. Two, we've begun load testing. In earnest, we had 100K load test just to figure out what the infra looks like. And now we're scaling to 1 million and 10 million and 100 million, a billion, and then eventually 10 billion. All of this should be happening in the next week or two as well. I don't have an exact date. I'm waiting on two folks on our team to let me know. So yeah, basically mainnet readiness is where we're going to right now. We have a bunch of migration CLI docs that we shared with the Foundation yesterday that Jinx can speak to if he wants, but we're getting to a point where we have all the nuances for the operational overhead. They are accounted for. So this is the actual migration of stake tokens, both node stake and app stake tokens, liquid tokens, how to deal with sexes, how to deal with dexes, how to deal with the bridges, how to deal with tokens that were lost, being the off-chain operational pieces, and then exactly what's supposed to happen on chain with the snapshot, the export, all of that has been documented. There is a massive PR that will be merged in that will explain everything as well from a technical and non-technical point of view. So that's coming as well. I saw that PR as well. It's just mammoth. And then we had updates to our full node, to the snapshot updates to the Shannon full node as well. And on top of that, we have put up docs explaining how to deploy a servicer and a relay miner, which is basically what the node is on Shannon, on Vultr, VULTR, which is a bare metal hosted provider. Our goal is to have documentation written for other providers as well. At the very least, we will have it written for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, and for GCP, Google Cloud, because these are the three providers that we use internally. So at the very least, we'll have it there, and we'll expand it beyond that as we're able to. The goal of us doing this is to make it easy for current and future node runners to be able to easily deploy Shannon node infrastructure in a repeatable manner, knowing full well that the team that built it, i.e. Grove, has also done it as well and has documented each step. So that's the update for Shannon. For Path, we have deployed a massive new version of Path into production, and we are now processing. We are moving some of our traffic from going through our portal to going to Path, about 5% of Ethereum only traffic, but it's still hitting Morse. So instead of going from the application to Grove's middleware layer to Morse, it's going from the application to Grove and then bifurcating 5% of Ethereum traffic at random to Path, which is then dispatching it to Morse. This is just to test Path as well, because at the end of the day, we are wanting to shoot everything through Path, which is the new dispatching layer for the entire ecosystem. In general, there's been a ton of quality of service improvements. We've been discussing internally what we need. We've been discussing with Liquify what they need to feel more comfortable. This is an ongoing conversation back and forth that we have with them. And now the only thing I think that's hanging over them sending more requests is just, it's funny enough, error codes or HTTP status codes. So JSON RPC throws a specific set of codes in the minus 32,000 range, and HTTP throws another set of codes, and we have to be opinionated here how we want to handle it. Either do we follow the standard HTTP spec or do we follow JSON RPC spec? And these are conversations we're having with Liquify as being the early adopter on what they believe as a major gateway, what they want to see. So this is that's happening there. Also, we've had a ton of changes made. So we are now working through updated docs. I think Crypto or someone else that's in here was requesting, or someone else that may not be this individual, was requesting to launch Path ASAP, but the docs weren't showing what was actually in production. So the goal is by tomorrow to get new docs out as well. That's Path. And then for general portal and ecosystem updates. So Grove was chosen to be a public RPC provider in Arbitrum's new marketplace. We're going through a very extensive KYB, or Know Your Business, which is basically KYC for businesses process right now. We are in the very final steps of it. It's just some nuances that they need us to fill out. I think we mentioned last time, Polygon is proactively reaching out to us to expand that partnership. I found out that a very close person in my life just became the head of ecosystem for Avalanche. So I just sent them over a blurb to get more introductions into the Avalanche ecosystem for Vigo, because we used to be very close with the initial early subnets. We'd like to rekindle that. And we have a better in there. We just had a call with Radix this morning. They would like to use us more. Well, they have about 30 projects that are live on Radix. They have 40 more that are up and coming. They said at least one of them would potentially be a Path consumer in the near future. So we are going to basically be sending them a packet of information as well, and working towards getting more Radix users as well on the ecosystem. And then the issue that we had a few days ago, the dispatcher issue. So the way requests make it to Pocket Network is, again, there's an app. The app hits an endpoint. That endpoint in this case is Grove's, is owned by Grove. Grove then processes the requests and then sends it to Pocket Network. That basically means it goes through a node, a Pocket node, and the Pocket node basically like flings it into the network to be processed. Periodically, Morse dispatcher nodes break. We don't know why. We've never, and since we're about a month away from going to Shannon, we're not going to try to fix it. We have tried fixing this in the past. And so when that happens, requests don't get on the network. We tend to have 3 or 4 dispatcher nodes in rotation at all times. Rarely do all 3 fail, but unfortunately on Sunday night at 2:00 Eastern US, it failed, and that is one of the windows of time when no one is online on our team. And so everything was broken for like 6 hours. And then it took another 5 hours or so to get them up and running, because the nodes were not able to be restored from snapshot at all. We have mitigations for this now after this issue. So even if this happens, and even if the self-healing fails, we have a faster way to dispatch nodes in the future. And there's that. Lastly, I was talking to Breezy about this morning. Traffic patterns are going to be like all over the place, right? Not only are we shifting traffic from one place to another, but also I have mentioned this before, a portion of the traffic that is on the network is generated by Grove to stimulate nodes decentralization. These aren't just new chains that we launched in the last 3 to 4 months. It's existing chains as well. The amount differs per region, per chain, and it changes from time to time. I'll give you an example. When a bunch of chains that we launched, we didn't know if there's going to be organic traffic coming. But then we take a look and we see that Sonic has quite a bit of organic traffic and Tron has quite a bit of organic traffic. Like we're talking in the orders of like 6 to 7 figures at minimum per day. And it fluctuates wildly. And so other chains we continue stimulating as customers come in to make sure that there's enough nodes available on the network. So not all the traffic on the network is from genuine customers. A huge chunk is, but I have said this at many meetings, we will be stimulating or creating artificial traffic on the network periodically as we are testing Path, as we're trying to keep the node chains alive, as we're trying to bring on new customers, as we're trying to bring on new Path gateways, because what we want to avoid is what happened after the Gandalf change last summer, where we went from 15 chains per node to 8 chains per node, which meant a bunch of node runners had to cut their loss chain, the chains that were lost losers, and there weren't even lost leading chains, which caused the network to be unstable, and the network being unstable caused customers to think that we are not a good provider, which caused them to churn fully, even if they had other chains that did work. So we're trying to avoid that by making sure that until we get to the point where we have Liquify and ChainStack and other gateways, including the accelerator gateways, pushing traffic to multiple chains, that these chains are generating enough between off-chains incentives through the F-chain subsidy and on-chain incentives through some artificial relay generation, that those nodes will stay alive. I can't give you the exact percentage because it fluctuates from every few days. We have a fairly sophisticated piece of software that is doing this. Sometimes it's turned off, sometimes it's turned on, sometimes it switches the which chains are doing it. So I'm not going to go into any more detail. I just, again, wanted to be transparent here that like this is why traffic patterns do change. I'll stop there. I think that is a very robust update from Grove today.
Goddamn right it was. The two biggest things, of course, in there are progressive load testing leading up to 10 billion a day is starting in the next day or so, it sounds like, which we are very excited about. And first blocks of Shannon mainnet produced inside of March, which I think is a pretty damn impressive accomplishment given what our timelines have been, and technically probably counts as still being within Q1. So I'm extremely excited about that and super happy with Grove's progress there. We're all looking forward to getting this thing across the finish line and actually getting live. In spite of the fact that we're all working double time now through these last 4 or 5 weeks. Any questions about all that?
I should add from the business case. So we have access to many, many, many customers that are either current, former, or just people that we can be introduced to. So Fred and I have basically gone through our customer management tool, our CRM, and have figured out 4 different ways we're going to be repitching all these customers as Path and Shannon come online, to be able to get a lot more organic relays either through us. So we're going to be pitching use it or lose it plans for net new customers, like with a certain amount of free relays. And Grove will eat the burn because mint will equal burn. We will also be pitching for larger customers, the ability that if they send a large minimum, they won't have to pay anything. But if they miss that minimum, they will have to pay, meaning that we're going to be incentivizing folks to really hammer us. But if they miss it by a little bit, they're going to be charged because they'll have to have a credit card on files. And we think this will help with certain customers in using us. We'll be pitching Path as something that we will help subsidize. Jinx and I have been chatting about a way to do that. And we'll be pitching for like very small net new users a certain amount of free relays as well. So we have different ways that we're going to be targeting this. Fred and I have been talking to customers for years, so we have a pretty good established relationship, and we know how to start new conversations as well here. And then we'll also be, doing a little bit of traveling here and there to restart the BD engine on our end. So I think that's that piece. To the question that is being asked, Path is going to be ongoing, as is Shannon. I believe sometime next month will be a certain version release, but then we're going to be iterating on it in perpetuity. There's a lot of features that I personally want to build. And again, Path is a toolkit. It is not just going to be middleware stuff. It will also handle more robust things like API key management and user management. And then I'd like to have other features added as well, which we'll get to in the future. So it is ongoing work. It is Grove's primary product that we will be vendoring for the foreseeable future.
Beautiful. And for everyone's edification, Grove has agreed to provide ongoing feature development and support for Shannon post-launch. Obviously, being the subject matter experts on the protocol, will be reliant on them for turning out additional features and upgrades and such along the way. If you have additional requests for feature development post Shannon, then of course we want to hear about that as well.
Sure. Regarding on top of that, monetizing path. There are a few ideas. So hold on, I have them written down, so I'm going to speak to what they are. Give me 1 second, because I have given it some thought. But again, while generating revenue is a priority, it is not is a priority. It's not the top priority right this moment. So the revenue generating ideas is one idea is, so for the free version of Path, it's to be able to route the request to any node that is the right node, meaning that it will just optimize for the first node it's going to be able to find. So if you're looking for an Ethereum node, great, we'll route it to the best, an Ethereum node. And there will be no app stake management sorry, that's one feature, like just routing to the best node. For a paid feature is routing to the best possible node. So it takes into account how many nodes are in the network, a report card for each node, as in which nodes have acted positively or negatively in the past. It'll optimize for latency. And so it'll have more intelligent load balancing. So that is a paid feature that we could have as either using our portal directly or as an API that sovereign users of Path could hook into, kind of like a WYSIWYG plug and play type of thing that they could uppay for. Regarding other paid features is app stake management, right? Something with burn being turned on, folks are going to need to be able to restake their tokens or have some type of system that purchases tokens on the open market and stakes them. That is something that we are going to be building for ourselves rather than doing it manually. For the moment, we're going to be doing it manually, but it's something that everyone else is going to need to handle as well. And then there's going to be a set of, in general, intelligent load balancing. So one of the things we've been thinking about is for LLMs. Once you have a bunch of LLMs on the network, what you need to do is send a request to a small LLM that figures out which of the LLMs that are available that you should prioritize based on the preferences of the user. The user may want to optimize for cost or they may want to optimize for speed, which usually isn't the case. It's usually either for cost or for accuracy. So this is kind of thinking about when you're using one of the closed source chatbots that exists right now. The question is, do you want to have a very accurate answer? So you use something like deep research or deep search if you're using ChatGPT or Grok, respectively, or do you want something that is extremely thoroughly uh, uh, processed and kind of like a PhD level answer? So you use kind of the pro version of Claude or use like the thinking features of Claude or ChatGPT or Grok or the rest? Or do you just want any answer just because it's like, how many moons does Jupiter have? I bring that up because my daughter asked me this the other day. That is a simple model. So having something that can intelligently load balance a feature like that is something that we could upscale on the Growth side, on the Growth portal side, or as an API that a sovereign path user could use. So these are just three ideas that I've been thinking through with the team on how to monetize Path in the future, or what we can build on top of Path. Um, yeah. So there is that. The other one is, if Path gets to a point where development is diminishing returns, what are some products that Grove can build? But that is really far out, and I don't even want to go down that route. We have to do a lot of things right before we can give ourselves the luxury of building another new product on top of Path, which itself is on top of Pocket. And we have only so many engineers, and we have massive roadmaps, if you've seen, for both. So we have things that we need to work on. Regarding the follow-up answer to Evo about satisfactory level of, I mean, that it's never going to be satisfactory. If you're ever a software engineer, right? I'm going to give you the technical answer, not the sales pitch answer. It's going to be good enough at every release, but just like your apps update on your phone every, 48 hours to 7 days, it's going to be the same thing here. Except it's open source, and we're going to be until we get into a release cadence that we are happy with. We're just going to be pushing them out as they happen. Ideally, we will have structured release cadences like every other big entity does. Path is 100% open source, but there are ways to add upmarket features on top of Path that do not necessarily have to be part of the Path framework, but could be plugins or features that people can plug into Path that we are selling ourselves through an API. And yes, this is an example of for what Tim wrote regarding, yes, this is like Fedora and Red Hat. Right, Fedora is a free version of open source Linux, and then Red Hat is the more professional managed version. It's the same thing with MongoDB. They have a free version and a paid version. WordPress has the same thing, free version and a paid version between WordPress.org and WordPress.com. It's having a self-hosted version versus a managed version of a piece of software. The example I tend to use with people when I talk about Path is, anyone can spin up an email server themselves, but you're not going to get any of the, address aliasing, spam filtering, address book, chat features that you get with Gmail or Yandex or not Pocket, Proton or others that you get. You're not going to get any of that if you spin up your own email server. So most people will choose to use established entities. So in my personal belief, in the short term, I believe there's going to be a handful of entities, let's call it 10 to 20 entities that will use Path, because they already are established in their industry. And there might be some people who are like, quote unquote hackers, that's not the right term, but extremely technically savvy and want to live the whole sovereign dream and want to launch their own version of Path that they manage themselves, that they do everything themselves just because they can. So we are obviously building for both use cases, but with my business hat on, my expectation is that Path and Pocket will succeed on the backs of enterprises. But the actual vision that Mike and the original founders had put forward is this more CryptoPunk vision where everything is done in a sovereign manner.
Yeah, and I'll add on.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. Just to, it very much seems like the kind of question that doesn't understand open source or SaaS type software. So just as a clarification of that, no piece of software is ever fixed and done. When you ask questions like reaching a satisfactory level just mostly means that you can use it in production. Typically in software, you're going to have a production version, you're going to have a release candidate, you're going to have a test candidate, or a test version, you're going to have a dev version, and those are going to be in ongoing development essentially forever, because you're going to have security updates, you're going to have optimization releases, you're going to have new features, etc. The pluggable aspect of Path is one of the most important aspects, because not only does it provide a business model opportunity for Grove, it also provides a business model opportunity for everyone in the ecosystem who has the level of engineers required to build extensibility and additional features and products on top of Path. So it is a valuable contribution to the ecosystem at large as an open source product, but also likely a path for monetization, definitely for Grove and probably for some other folks within the ecosystem as well. Also, I was a Red Hat user.
Ubuntu here for a very long time.
Other questions on that front? MX Linux represent. Hello, Miss Kitty.
Something I want to call out that I've, since Jinx and I have been here basically from the very beginning in different capacities. Over the last 10 months, I think we have done more changes to Morse protocol than we have been able to ever do because of the changes to the DAO. So I just want to call out that working here on this side, there's been a net positive to being able to flip knobs on the network to either add new networks. I think this week Ramiro, or I forgot which team, one team asked us to add 3 new chain IDs for LLMs on Morse. That's something that would have had to take an inordinate amount of time to get through. All of the changes in the moment for tokenomics, the way they currently are, we are able to make literally, have the idea or do the analysis, and then within a couple hours they're live. I just want to call that out here, that like this has been a net positive Just a pleasure because it was miserable before. So I'm just calling it out because we've made like 3 changes in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and it's just been really nice to not have to worry about this.
Yeah, big shout out to Pocket Scan team for turning up our first experimental LLM chains and making them available on the network. That was pushed out on Monday. And also, yeah, our ability to act in a truly agile fashion has functionally been critical to our ability to get across the line here and to be able to move quickly and get things done. Tokenomics is ongoing. We have our meeting again this afternoon. We are shooting again for the same target of um, making sure that we are at or close to parity in mint and burn. And I want to clarify something about this because I've gotten this question a few times. Mint and burn and a super low net network inflation does not mean node runners not getting rewards. It just means that we have found equalization or equilibrium between the cost to users of the network and the rewards that are emitted on the network. And much like Ethereum, we're targeting a low total net inflation, which is actual growth of total supply. I think they tend to land around like 0 to 2.5% on average, depending on the needs of the network. But that doesn't mean that the rewards for node runners are dropping like to zero or anything along that line. That being said, we have aggressively been trying to interact and engage with all node runners and all gateways or apps running on the network because we need to have a good understanding of your COGS, your actual cost of production. So if you have not talked to us yet about what it actually costs you to serve relays or to service relays, as the case may be, please reach out. Those conversations will be confidential. I understand a lot of people don't like exposing the secret sauce of their production costs and all the rest of that, but I want to make sure that we aren't blindly hurting your business by setting parameters at a place where they're not sustainable for you. So if you are running nodes, please DM me, whatever, reach out on Discord or Telegram. We want to make sure that your data is included in our aggregate data. And it's not going to be personally identifiable or anything else. I just need to have some sense of what it costs you and what a good reward schema is for you to still be profitable and have a margin when we're setting these things in place. Because once we start getting close to mint and burn, we're going to see the actual process or the actual marketplace as intended within the network is coming into play. And that means real cost on the user side, and it means an equilibrium of reward structure on the node side, with a target of ultra low inflation. So we need to make sure that we're accounting for you. So please reach out on that front and talk to me about what your costs are. Other questions?
Oh yeah. Next week, Olshansky will be coming online to
Oh
answer
yeah,
any
yeah,
question.
yeah.
Sorry.
So
And yeah, I wasn't sure if you're
next
going to
week,
say it, but I realized we should say it.
yeah, I thought you were gonna do that part, but I will I will blow it up here. Olshansky will be doing a major presentation on the Shannon upgrade and on the migration pathways and all the rest of that next week in our Wednesday ecosystem call. So if you have any sort of stake in the launch of Shannon, you absolutely do not want to miss that. Be here, whatever you are whatever your thing is going to be. Um, Tim Riggins asks, aren't those costs going to be ever changing? I'm assuming the tokenomics conversation will be a constant. So the framework of mint and burn with tokenomics is an adjustable framework and will likely need to be adjusted frequently based on the current value of the token, among other things, and of course on total network volume because that also plays into it. But the costs that are associated with both the reward side and the use side are denominated in USD. So much like we have now, the RTTMs and such will need to be adjusted depending on the current value of the token to keep those costs consistent for reward estimations on the node runner side and actual cost from the user side through gateways and all the rest of that. Nobody's going to use the network if it costs a dime one day and a dollar the next, so we have to make sure that we are accounting for that. What I'd like to see in the long term is something that is a little bit more dynamic and that uses some on-chain parameters, but that is something that is well outside the scope of what we have in place now from a feature perspective, and we need to beat on the math and make sure the math is in place before we start getting into ways to dynamically assess the math and make those kinds of changes to the network. Part of why we have a variable RTTM right now is to account for the differences in complexity and or cost in serving up various types of data as we begin to move into a lot broader data types moving through the network, since we're moving beyond RPC and into, I think, essentially any open API type data structure. So this will be a very complicated soup that needs to be stirred frequently. I would like in a year from now if that dynamic approach could be baked into the network. That is certainly on our list of items that we want to examine. But right now, even the advanced gigabrain of folks like Ramiro is chewing on what do these numbers need to look like out of the box. Is that dynamic approach something exchanges may be interested in before listing? Seems like that would fall into the same bucket. I don't know that it's necessarily relevant to the exchanges. Maybe you can kind of expound on that a little bit. It functionally is an adjustment of the cost versus reward cycle internal to the network. Typing. He's typing. Somebody got to get me a hold music button. Seems like the exchanges approach more functional, predictable tokenomics rather than determined at the human level. I could be mistaken. Oh, so yeah, that's kind of a misunderstanding. The adjustments that we're making are adjustments of the internal cycle. They are not adjustments of like total supply emission and such. They're adjustments to keep that functionality stable. We absolutely do want something that is a little more dynamic and real time instead of, say, weekly adjustments. But from the perspective of both users of the network and anyone external who's interested in tokenomics, that doesn't functionally change much to them, given that the month over month changes, are stable from a 30-day perspective. Even if there was a radical shift in price, for instance, it would not be affecting the network tokenomics for any longer than a week. And if it needed to happen faster than that because it was a truly radical shift, then we have the ability to move quickly at this point to adjust for that. And right now, it's I'm planning for that radical shift too, my man. Right now, our schedule is every Monday we are making sure that those adjustments are there as needed so that it stays stable. But if we started going through like a massive bull run or something along that line, we could be in there every day as needed to make sure that those numbers stay stable. We're not bound by any hard schedule at this point. We respond to network conditions. Evo asked, when will the final Shannon hard release date be officially announced? Art, are we going to touch on that next Wednesday?
Well, yeah. So I'll briefly mention. So the chain is launching next week, but you're asking when will the migration will be done.
Yeah.
Olshansky will go into details about that, and you'll understand it. It is like a lot of off-chain coordination that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And so next week we will go into what it takes. It will take a little bit of time. So I don't have an exact date because there are unknown unknowns. So we're going to do this on testnet, and then we're going to be doing this on mainnet. And if we find something that needs to be quickly fixed, obviously that'll push the final migration back by maybe a couple hours or a day or so. It just depends. But it is in April, to the best of my knowledge at this point.
Yeah.
Does-
And I'll add on to that to say there are two things that we are working on the foundation side that have to be completed before we can do the hard cutover. One of them is the bridge updates, which we're working on with Raid Guild. We had one side of that we've got perfectly locked down. We discovered some complexities that were added in from the other side. Basically, the multi-chain bridge that was launched by Wojtek. He never actually committed his final changes to the repo. And when I reached out to him, was not interested in doing so. So we have the final two live version within the repo, and we have to rebuild the last pieces that he had put in before it went live, and then provide the Shannon updates to that as well. So it ended up being a little bit more work than what we expected, and probably adds a little time to that. The other part that is in progress right now is tooling to automate some of the claim functions between Morse and Shannon. There are essentially around 20,000 individual claim transactions that have to occur during the process of the migration. So we are looking at the most effective way to handle bulk tooling to both migrate accounts from one to the other and to reassign those accounts into their previous state configuration, which is two separate things that have to occur. So with Shannon mainnet itself actually being live in the next couple of weeks, the hard cutover date comes down to us having the final tooling and updates in place primarily on the foundation side, barring any unexpected unknown unknowns on the mainnet side from Grove. So we're there. We are literally like looking through the window right now, but we have some last minute house cleaning that needs to be done so that we're all in place. We are looking to achieve a 90% cutover on the actual cutover day. We know that there are going to be some folks who have nodes out there who are indie node runners who maybe haven't paid attention in a while, or people who haven't been paying attention to their wallets, or who are staked with individual services somewhere. Those are all, things that could be like sort of left out in the dark for a little bit. Our expectation is that as all of this is happening, when people go to look at things and see things breaking, that they will come to the Discord or to the Telegram or to Twitter or other places and be like, hey, what's happening? And we can say, hey, here's the function, go to this URL and do your claim thing, and there you go, you're good to go. But we are targeting having 90% of our existing staked nodes and users and tokens migrated across and claimed on Shannon within our cutover window. And after that, we will maintain the infrastructure required to support later migrations as people figure out, what things are in place. Evo asked, does PNF have stables ready for marketing with Truth Cartel? If not, how will 100K per month get collected? Well, first of all, I will reiterate again that it would behoove you to take some time to understand the difference between future projections in a pro forma and actual reconciled totals. If you're looking at the pro forma, the link of which is published and maintained by the foundation in the forum, you'll see that those projections have been reduced to account for, the realities of the current marketplace and all the rest of that. We had hoped to be able to have 100K per month during that period to use for marketing purposes, but the reality is, at the current price, that's just not going to happen without completely bleeding out the market, and we have no intention of doing that. So, yes, we very much are ready to go with marketing with Truth Cartel, but at a budget that's reasonable and sane given current market conditions. As a matter of fact, we just had our weekly our weekly meeting with Truth Cartel this morning to talk about those additional strategies. And I've got a couple of more podcasts and AMAs and all the rest of that coming up to help set those things up. We also have achieved a couple of big wins from media placement side. A lot of you probably saw that we were in the editor picks of Cointelegraph this last week, speaking about decentralization and why that's important to the mission. So that's you're starting to see the progress of that media place in action. And there's typing. By the way, that article on Cointelegraph is really good. So if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. Why were staking incentives canceled for long-term stakers? Yeah, good question there. As we noted in the post on the forum itself, the long-term staking incentive program included a disclaimer from the beginning that the structure of that and rewards and all the rest of that could potentially be changed based on the health of the network. And the fact is, the health of the network right now requires that additional tokens being rewarded on top of the existing tokens would be negative for the health of the network. Right now, we're talking about emitting additional tokens to keep putting out there, essentially as a faux form of inflation, all things considered. It works out the same as being higher inflation along the way. So, the disclaimer was in place there. That program was put out. I think the program was well intentioned, but it didn't do a great job of analyzing what the long term impact would be, especially in projecting the negative market action that we've seen since then. When can we expect validator rewards to be increased and servicer rewards decreased a lot? That's a plan that I've been working on. It does require the math to be good. Once that has been beat into a proposable level, then I'll do the normal thing and put it up for proposal to the DAO and let all of the gigabrains in the ecosystem beat on it and see whether it feels like a good idea to them. Questions from the den 319. Salaries, probably don't want to touch on this, but obviously that fella asked about it. Not really sure what he wants. I'll answer that straight up. We are at 1/3 of the labor cost in the foundation that we were a year ago. So nitpicking about salaries at this point is literally just criticizing the project because you don't like it. And you can quote me on this. Fuck them. Portal fee reimbursement. There was talk about waiving the portal fee, or once they hit a certain amount of traffic, they would be reimbursed. Is that a thing? Yes, it is not a hard thing yet. We are still working on the details of that program. The idea will be that essentially we have a retail cost, right? That's the burn. But as with any service, the greater the usage, there would be an expectation of a wholesale discount. So what we're working on right now is what levels of relay volume being driven by a demand aggregator would entail having wholesale discounts, and to what degree those wholesale discounts could occur. And if you look at any sort of a product, right, the greater the volume total, some of those wholesale discounts can be pretty significant. But that also has to stay within the ability to fit the tokenomics. It can't just be a bleed on the ecosystem itself. So we're working on the specifics of the math, but the general high-level detail is that there will be a 90-day trailing rebate that would be based on accumulated or aggregated relay counts during that time. We would probably make the first tier of that fairly achievable, I think, maybe, around the 100 million relay a day level. But with the kind of numbers that we're going for, obviously we're looking for, strong numbers to get up to the top level rebate aspect of that. And with a 90-day trailing program, that also gives time for the network to absorb the cost of the relay in reward emissions and the rest of that. Maybe too early, but what is the expected downtime for the upgrade, where it be relays, exchange access, sex trading, etc.? Okay. The downtime per se, I don't think is going to be notable at all. We would have a period of time, probably within 24 hours, where we have that hard cutover process, where we are in between the Morse snapshot and the Shannon governance transaction, which is the go live, so to speak, for the existing network. And that we are working to keep that window as short as possible. But given how many accounts need to be migrated over, given the size of the batch transactions that have to occur, and given the testing that has to happen as we're running those imports, we also don't want to rush it. So from a network traffic perspective, relays are going to flow. Nobody's going to have a hard downtime from that perspective. But we expect that some of these services will be either inaccessible briefly or in between both sides of the network, and you may not be sure where to look at certain things. We've got Pocket Scan working on their Shannon Scan version, so I would assume between the two we will probably be good from that perspective, but that will be fairly limited impact. For the sexes and dexes, the services themselves, like sexes in general, will suspend deposits and withdrawals, but that doesn't affect internal trading because account balances within sexes for the users are really just an entry in a database, essentially. So, like, trading internally doesn't ever stop at all. But there will be no deposits or withdrawals during that time, because anything that happens after the Morse snapshot is done until the Shannon governance transaction occurs, which is a hard cutover, changes in state from Morse will not be reflected in Shannon. So essentially, from the moment that the Morse snapshot is taken, a couple of things happen. One is that RTTM goes to 0. No more Morse Pocket is produced at all. And any of the services that are allowing for external movement of tokens will be suspended. So if you're on the EVM side, indexes and such, you can trade those things around all day long, but bridging will not be supported during that downtime, which obviously, if you're moving things around inside and outside of the network, that would send your pocket off into nowhere land. We are going to broadcast the hell out of all of this data before that happens, because we want to make sure that nobody's trying to pull anything shady, and we want to make sure that all the users are aware of that. But it's blockchain. People can continue running nodes and continue trying to move those things around. But Morse Pocket, that is after the snapshot, doesn't exist in any meaningful way, and we will be radically working to shut off every possible thing that we can to reduce that impact. April for demo day, what's the format? Webinar, live stream, pre-recorded. It's going to be on the stage in here. I mentioned that earlier, so it will be in the Discord on the stage. We will record it, but it won't be pre-recorded. And we will support having Q&A and all that. We're looking at about a 10-minute demo per team, and then about a 10-minute Q&A session, depending on how active those are. Not a question, but a thought. If Grove will have paid features for Path, but also be supporting Path for PNF, make sure there are very clear lines between what PNF is paying to have delivered and what Grove is doing themselves. Someone will want to bitch about it. Oh yeah, always the case.
I
So
interject after you
sure,
say something.
absolutely.
Finish your thoughts, and then I'll say my piece.
I'll just say this, that in any sort of a composable, extensible, or pluggable system, the core is what's being delivered and upgraded, much like WordPress.org, right? The core WordPress repository is always updated. Anybody can take that and go install that on their own hardware and run it and all the rest of that. Many of the advanced functions of WordPress are contained within plugins, and a whole hell of a lot of them you have to pay either an upfront cost or a licensing fee, an annual support fee, something along that line. That's the way that it works. And our apps that are being built on the Pocket protocol are functionally the same exact way. They're using Pocket for the data sources on the back end, but they're providing some sort of commercial service on the front end. So all of this works much like that. Art?
Yeah. So there has been, for whatever reason, a propensity for Grove to not get paid. It's been extremely infuriating to work through this for years. Through this is now the third iteration of the foundation. And this has thankfully been the friendliest foundation that we have. Um, I don't know where it came from because the foundation sprung out of the original Pocket Network organization and was seeded and funded by funds raised by Pocket Network Inc., now known as Growth. And what I think needs to be understood, while we are not the only engineering organization in the ecosystem, there's plenty of others. We are the ones with all of the partnerships that are in place. We are the ones that have built the tooling, and we are the ones with the protocol team. And it's not easy where you can just say that the protocol team can go off and move to PNF. They don't want to. They want to work on a for-profit corporation that has an equity attached to it. The foundation will never be able to offer that. It's not you can go off and hire something that has been built from scratch. That this is completely bespoke tech built on top of Cosmos and Ignite, but there's a lot of custom things that have been built to make Pocket. And so this thing about Grove not getting paid to do work has been very negative. I'll give you something that one of our investors spoke with us. So as you all know, we have a board. And on our board, we have a few investors that sit and a few that observe. And one of the ones that sits is the GP of 1KX, Chris Heyman. And he's, 1KX is an extremely lauded firm in this space. And some of the feedback that he gave me this past week when we caught up one-on-one after the meeting was that we have a very toxic DAO, and it has stopped them and many of their partners from investing more money because the DAO is actually against economic progress and against development. It is actually structured right now for what he called governance grifters. People who just want to politic for the sake of politic, make committees for the sake of making committees, to make sure that no money is spent and no one is paid. And it has stopped him that's why he participated in a token round 3 years ago. And while he has been on our board and been giving us feedback and advice and creating tons of partnerships for us, he has and his firm have not invested further, even when we did an equity with a token raise 2 years ago. So this whole thing about Grove not getting paid for services rendered or services to be rendered has been a net negative for the ecosystem at large and has been absolutely bad optically. So I just want to call this out, that while we are not going anywhere and we are committed to working on this on Pocket, we are an equity-based team at the moment, and we are a labs team for Pocket. 100% of what we do is for Pocket. Our goal is to not have to depend on Pocket because forever, in the sense that we don't need to depend on selling tokens. We would like to depend on revenue, but to do that, we need to get to where we are. And the last thing I'll say is when you are building a 0 to 1 innovation, when you're building something from scratch that has not existed, it takes a lot of research. And while there's been, not, unfortunately, this history of Pocket has had some infighting, and I think we are in a very good place now where none of that exists. But there's also been a lot of R&D that's happened. I'll give you one example, and then I'll stop talking. I was chatting with Olshansky, where we were looking at DIN. DIN is a decentralized infrastructure network that Infura is building. It's basically like a Pocket type competitor. They have spent 3 years trying to launch, and they have not yet launched fully at all. What they've been doing is just, centralized routing to a few providers here and there, and just literally flipping switches on their end. And now, after 3 years of trying to launch a token, they have decided to launch an AVS, an actively validated service, basically an eigenlayer restaking protocol. And in doing that, there was a point I was trying to make here. They couldn't figure out how to do what we're doing, right? They're one of the few organizations that couldn't figure out how to do it. And there was a specific point I wanted to make, and I've completely just lost the lost the path here. Shit. I'm sorry. I have like 3 competing thoughts in my head.
I think where you were going with this is that it's hard, it's expensive to solve hard, and we have to understand that that's a cost of. You
Yeah,
hate us all, Ramiro says. We have to understand that that's a cost of building what we're building and be working together to support that. And the fact is, I mean, it's, we have been in the process of auditing the last couple of years of expenses from within the foundation, and yeah, holy shit, a lot of people have taken a lot of money and not returned anywhere near the kind of value that we would have expected. And that sucks when we look back at this. And one of the points you brought up that I want to make sure is reiterated, a lot of people like to talk about how much money the foundation gave Grove, but Grove gave that money to the foundation to begin with. That's how the foundation was formed. So, that there's a really fucked up perspective of the history of Foundation and Grove that doesn't take into account any of the actual facts. So we are in the process of cleaning up a lot of the things that existed. Right now, the foundation is more tightly managed than it ever has been from an economics perspective. Working with Kansu earlier this week, we were able to find a way to trim another couple of $100,000 to $300,000 annually off the total budget. All of the forward-looking perspectives are based on exactly the same thing: how we can continue to reduce the necessary costs of custodianship and make it more efficient, and also how to make sure the tokenomics are there to support a healthy marketplace so that we can get back to growing the total value. And that's a fact. How can the DAO earn the trust of those investors, or are we just fucked? No, I don't think we're fucked.
you're not fucked.
Yeah, we have ongoing conversations with them. We show them the technical progress. We show them the progress of the foundation and of the various companies within the ecosystem that are working to support this. And of course, along with Grove, also big shout out to Pocket Scan's team, who contributes a hell of a lot. Breezy and his group, who contribute a lot. Sasquatch and the Raid Guild folks, who are working to help support us through the transition. I mean, we have the entities in the ecosystem right now that are working with us are all helping us actually get across the line, and are doing so with the understanding of where we're at from a budgetary and financial long view perspective. So I think that we have some fantastic partners in the ecosystem right now. And we, at this point, most of the grifters and bloodsuckers are gone. They pulled out as much as they could and then they left. Bye.
Right. But
Where we're at
unfortunately,
now
the
is a
way the
good.
DAO is built, the votes still exist forever, and I think it's nearly impossible to issue new votes. I mean, these are things that Jinx and I have spoken about
Mhm.
for changes in the future. But uh, so while they're not here, they still come out whenever they can kind of fuck us over a bit. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it happens.
Part of what we're looking at, post Shannon launch, given that we're in the Cosmos ecosystem, is adopting actual Cosmos governance mechanisms since they're already there, and so that we can get back to adding new voters and all the rest of that, because our whole system has been broken now for some amount of time. All right, it's 1:05, so I guess that means everybody had a lot of questions and were interested. Not trying to sound offensive, but how come some of the PGAT applicants seem like noob devs? Some of the questions in PGA chat are too simple compared to the talks about what they are supposed to be building. I am not in a place where I can criticize anybody's engineering teams. I think what some people might consider noobs, other people might not. Yeah, as Tim mentions, they've all been interviewed, they've all been reviewed. The products that they're building are in progress. As long as they meet their milestones, I don't really care what kind of questions they ask along the way. A lot of them are building within this ecosystem for the first time and don't have any history of how things work, and they have to figure things out from scratch. That means sometimes you ask questions that folks around here may consider noob. So, not trying to sound offensive perhaps, but certainly doesn't seem like it takes into account some of the realities of walking into a new ecosystem to build. And I see you're still typing, so I'll let you get one more in, but it's 1:05, so we're going to wrap after that. I understood there was a checklist for Coinbase listing. Seems like there is no list at all. What is the chance to get listed? So that is such a weirdly phrased statement. If you were on the actual calls that Coinbase was doing, they outlined the things that they were looking for. I don't know why you think there's no list at all. You can literally go back in the CEO's Twitter feed and go find his recorded video chats to see his conversations about that. They didn't publish a URL of a checklist. No, it's not like that. They outlined what their requirements were for listing builder tokens. I encourage you to go do a little research. DYOR. All right. And on that note, we will see y'all next week. Don't miss it. Olshansky and team will be on there to talk migration and launch. And we are on the final fucking countdown here, folks. See y'all then.
See ya.